Hi class! In today's video, I'll be giving you a tutorial on how to build the Quiz app. As always, you can find all the information about the Quiz app here on our Canvas page, including all of the different components that you'll need to complete the app, and a link to an example of the completed app. So let's take a look at the completed app real quick. The way this app works is mine is Brooklyn Nine-Nine themed, so when you click on the play button here,
Terry regrets the way he answered the phone.
you hear a sound of a character saying a line from the TV show, and then here the user can enter the name of the character who they think said that. If they get it wrong, if they say Bob, which is incorrect, a label comes up to tell them that they're incorrect and to try again. But then if they get the answer right and hit submit, they see an image that shows the character saying the line, as well as a label that says that they got it correct with the name of the character, and a next button that takes them to the next question. And now they hear the second sound and can continue on to all 4 questions. In your app, you don't have to use sound. You can use images, you can use just plain text, you can use videos, whatever works for the theme of your app. Either way, it's going to be pretty much the same in the blocks. So let's go ahead and get started doing that. So over here on Thunkable, I have already began the quiz app just to make things a little bit simpler. I've put all of my visible components in the app, so I have the label that shows the answer, or shows the title of the app, as well as the button that plays the sound. I have a text input where the user will answer or enter their answer for the question, as well as a submit button to click when they have typed in their answer, as well as the image that displays when they get the answer correct. Down here you can kind of see is the next button that will take them to the next question when they've completed one question. And there's also a couple other labels. I have the answer label here. It's currently empty, but this is where the text incorrect, try again, or correct, so-and-so said that will appear when the user gets the answer or the question correct or incorrect. And lastly, I have this label down here called the index label. You can't really see it right now because it's off the screen, but this is a label here at the bottom that tells you what number question you're on. Okay, great. So I have all of that set up here, and in the blocks I've already gone ahead and made my lists of my different things that I need. First here I have an images list, and the images list holds all of the image files for the images that'll be displayed when the user gets the answer correct. The second here is the answers list, so this is all the correct answers to each question. And the last here is a sounds list, so this is like the questions of my app, the sounds that'll play that the user will have to look at. And you'll notice that each of these is, each character is at the same index in each list. So you see the Terry Jeffords.jpg is the first one in the images list. The answer Terry Jeffords written out is the first in the answers list. And the Terry Jeffords MP3 is the first in the sounds list. And that's true for all 4 questions and answers. They're all in the same order. And that's very important so that we can use this 4th variable here, which is our index. And you'll recall that our index is a number or an integer that we can use to select the correct numbered item in a list. And if we have all of our list items in the correct indices in each of our lists, then we can use the same index value for all to access all 3 lists at once. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and get started with building out this app. The first thing that I want to build is the next button. So what the next button will do is take the user to the next question in our list. And it'll do that by selecting the item in the appropriate list that's at the index value that represents what numbered question we are on. So let's go ahead and start doing that. And it's going to be very similar to how we built the Quotes app. So let's go over here to the next button and get our event handler when next button.click. And what we want to do is every single time the user clicks the next button, we want to increase the index value by 1 so that we're going to the next item in the list. We can do that by going over to variables, and we have this special block, handy dandy block here that says change this variable by 1, and that will increase the variable by 1, which is exactly what we want to do. So we can go and grab that out here, and we're going to make sure that the variable that's selected is the index, and that'll be that. I'm going to go ahead and go over to the math here and just grab another 1 just to make that go well. Great. Let's go ahead and make sure that this is working. So I'm going to put in a little, in our index label here, the value of the index so that we can track to make sure that it's working properly. So if we go to variables, we can grab this event handler here that says when this variable initializes or changes. So everything inside of this event handler will occur every single time that the defined variable initializes or changes, which is exactly what we want. We want to update the index in our index label every time it is changed. So we can go ahead and set our index label's text to the variable index. Great. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Let me hit preview. You can see down here is where our index label is. It's very small, but we're currently on index number 1. When I click next, it goes 2, 3, 4. Oh, but then it goes to 5, and I only have 4 items in my list. So if this was actually connected to our sound, then it would try to get a sound file that is the number 5 item in our list, but there's only 4. So what we want to do is once we get to the end of the list, we want to go back to the beginning of the list. So let's go ahead and add that in. For this, we're going to need a conditional statement. So let's go to our control panel, and we're going to use this if, do, else statement. We can grab that and put it in our next button. I'm going to take this change block out for a second. So what we want to say is when the index value reaches the last index of our list, which for me is 4, then we want to set the index value back to 1 so that we go back to the beginning of the list. So let's go ahead and do that. First, we're going to need a logic statement because we're trying to see if 2 things are equal. We're trying to see if the index value is equal to the length of our list. So we can say, does the index value equal the length of our list? And you can use any list because they're all the same length. So I'm just going to use my sounds list. But it doesn't matter because all of them are 4 items long. Great. So we have if the index value is equal to the length of our list, meaning does it equal 4. Then that's when we want to set our index back to 1. So we can get the set block, make sure that it's set to the index variable, and go ahead and grab a math block and change it back to 1. So this will happen every time our index value equals 4 or equals the length of our list. We'll go back to 1. Whenever it doesn't equal 4, so if it equals 1, 2, or 3, that's when we want to change the value by 1, increase it by 1. So we can go and put that change block back into the else block. So now if we go over to our designer, you can see we're starting at number 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we click again and it goes back to 1. Okay, so that's great. We are successfully increasing our index value. But what we want to do now is actually do something with that index value. It's great that we're increasing the number so that we can move along our list, but we haven't actually attached it to the list yet. So let's go ahead and do that. What I want to do first is I want to set my sound file to be the sound file that's at the correct index in my sounds list. For you, it might be an image, it might be a piece of text, in which case you might want to change the picture of an image component or change the text property of a label. But for me, it's a sound. So if I go over to my sound 1 here, and I can set my sound source. So for you, you might be setting, like I said, the image is picture, or a label's text, or a video source, or whatever it might be. For me, it's sound, but the second half of this code block would be the same for everyone, which is that we need to select an item in, for me, the sounds list that is at the index of the number question that we're at. So if we go over to our list panel here, we can get the block that says in list get number, and drag that out, and we can get rid of this part. And so we want to set the sound source to an item in what list? The sounds list, because that's the list that has all my sounds in it. So I can go ahead and grab sound list. And we want to get the item that's at the number of our index. So that every time we're doing all this work here to increase and change our index value, that's being reflected by the number here. Okay. So what we can see now, when we preview, we're on number 1. Let me do it on the live test. Oh, well, it would play if I made that button so that the sound played when we clicked it. So let's go ahead and add that in. My bad. So on our play button, for me, I'm going to have when the play button is clicked, we're going to call the sound to play. All right, let's go ahead and try that again. I'm going to make sure that the volume on my sound is up. So you saw that there was no volume, so let's go ahead and try it again.
I'm teaching Father the math.
Go down, no doubt. Yeah, squeeze. Terry regrets the way he answered the phone.
Okay, great. So you notice that all of them worked except for the first one, because the sound doesn't have a source until we click on the next button. So I'm going to go ahead and change my sound source here to match the first item in my list, just so that every time when I first open the app, it'll play that sound.
Terry regrets the way he answered the phone.
And then we can move on to the next one.
I'm teaching Father the math.
Great. You could also do this in the blocks if you wanted to, by doing when screen 1 opens, and we could copy this same block here. Either way, either setting it here in the blocks like that, or on the design side in the properties here, either way works. So you can do the same thing if you have a label or a picture. You can just set its the correct property to the first item in your list here in the properties panel, and or you could do it in the blocks when screen 1 opens. Both are great ways to get the first question up on your screen. Okay. So now that we have the next button completed, I want to go ahead and do one more thing with this app variable index when it initializes or changes. You'll notice in my sample app, it has 2 of 4, whereas right now it's just showing the one number here. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that real quick. You can do that by joining together some text. So you can get this join block here, and I want to say the index value and then a slash. I'm actually going to do space/space to get spaces around them, and then add another item, and that item is going to be the length of our list, which I'm going to get over here. It doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter what list because they're all the same length. And now in the blocks or in the preview here, you'll see that it says 1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 4, back to 1. Okay. The other button that we need to take care of is the submit button. So when the submit button is clicked, we want to check to see if what the user typed in the text input matches the answer that's in our answer list. So let's go ahead and do that. So when the submit button is clicked, go ahead and grab out this when submit button click event handler. We're going to have to do a logic statement because we're checking to see if two things are equal. So we need an if do, we actually need an if do else here. Because the do, we're going to check in the if, we're going to check to see if their answer matches our answers list. If it does, in the do is what we're going to do when they get it correct, and the else is what we're going to do when they get it incorrect. So let's go ahead and get that logic statement going. We want to say if what they put in the text input, which is the text input's text, equals the item in our answers list that is at the index value of our question. So we can again go to the lists and use this in-list get number to get a certain item from a list at our index value. We're going to say in-list answers list because that's where our answers are at the indexed value index. Great. So now in the do is what we want to do whenever they get the answer correct. For me, what I want to happen is I want to...
I'm teaching Father the math!
If I get it correct, is to show the picture that goes with the question as well as the text correct. So-and-so said that. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that in. So I know I'm going to be changing my image picture. My correct image is the image where is that my image component. And we're going to change the image's picture to the item in my images list that's at the index value. So once again, we're going to use this in list get number block. We're going to be using this block a lot. I'm going to get rid of this. And we want an item from the images list at our index value. Great. So now, let's preview that. We know that the first answer is Terry Jeffords. I hit submit. Nothing happens because we haven't completed this block yet. So let's go ahead and add in what happens when they get it wrong. So when they get the answer wrong, I want to display in my answer label, I want to say incorrect, try again. Great. So let's go ahead and try that again. Well, you're going to notice that it's not going to work again. If I type in Terry Jeffords, it's going to tell me that it's incorrect. Even though I typed it correctly, the reason why it's telling me it's wrong is because in my answers list, Terry's name is capitalized. And so when I capitalize it, then it's correct. But we want to make life a little bit easier for our user. We don't want them to have to know that they need to capitalize things. We want just, as long as they get the right letters in the right order, to make sure they get it right. And one way in computer science that you can do this is by just making all of your answers and what the person types the same case sensitivity. So for me, it's going to be making everything all capitalized so that when we're doing this logic statement here, we're checking against two completely capitalized uppercase answers, so that case sensitivity will never be an issue. And we can do that by going over to the text here, and you'll see we have this block that's two uppercase. So we can go ahead and add that in to both of the to both sides of our logic statement. So now it'll make the items in this list completely capitalized and make whatever the user types in completely capitalized so that we're avoiding the case sensitivity issues. You could do the same thing by making it all lowercase or making it all title case, just as long as it's the same in both instances. So now if we go ahead and go over here, and we type in Terry Jeffords, doesn't even matter what the capitalization is. If you do something like that, it'll still work. Okay, great. Now, the other thing I want to do whenever the user gets the answer correct is not just show them the correct answer, but I also want to show them that text that says correct, so-and-so said that. So let's go ahead, and that's going to be displayed in my answer label. So I'm going to set my answer label's text, and I need to join together a couple pieces of information. So let's grab a join block, and I want to say correct. And then I want the name of the character. And I can do that by using the answers list here. Just like we did before, we're going to get the item from the answers list that is at the correct index value. So that'll give me the character's name. And then I want one more piece of text that says correct, so-and-so, and said that. And I put a space before this so that there would be a space between the name and said that. And I put a space after correct so that there'd be a space as well. So now when we go back, and we type it in, if I get it wrong, it says incorrect, try again. If I get it right, it says correct, Terry Jeffords said that with the image. And then we click next. We notice that the sound changes, but the image doesn't go away. So let's go ahead and add that. So this is going to happen in the next button. Inside the next button, we want to do a couple things to reset the app for each new question. You'll notice that on my original app, when we click next, some of the things go away. The image goes away, that label goes away, the next button goes away. So let's go ahead and put in some of that visibility into our app so that it kind of looks like it's toggling between multiple screens. So over here in the designer, I'm going to go ahead and select the things that I want to be invisible when the user opens the app. And that's going to be my image and the next button. And we can scroll down here on its properties and make visible false. And also the answer label. Go ahead and make that invisible. Now when we preview, you'll just see those few things. And then once we click submit is when we're gonna make all of those things appear. So, if we go back to our blocks, when they get the answer correct is when we want to show the image in that label and the next button. So, we can set the correct images visibility to true. And we want to set the answer labels visibility to true. And the next buttons visibility to true. Great. When they get the answer wrong, we don't want to see the image or the next button because they need to try again. We just want to see the answer label so they can see that incorrect try again message. So we'll go ahead and set the answer label to true when that happens. Great. Conversely, on the next button is when we want the image, the image, the next button, and that answer label to disappear, and then show the button, the play button, the text input, and the submit button. So when they click the next button, we want to make the play button visible. We want to make the text input. We want to make the text input and the submit button visible, and they're both inside of row 1. So we can go ahead and just make row 1 visible. Like that. Great. We're also going to want to make those two invisible whenever we're showing the correct answer here. So back over here, we can set row 1, set its visibility to false, and also the play buttons. I don't know why that keeps popping up. The play buttons visibility to false. Great. I think that's all of them. Let's go ahead and try it. So I type in the wrong answer. Great, that label shows up just as we had hoped. We type in the right answer. Great, just the text input, the submit button, and the play button all went away. And now we just see the image, the answer label, and the next button. And then we click the next button. Okay, so we need to add, so it's great that these things showed up, but we need to make these three, the image, this label, and this next button go away. So let's go ahead and add that in. Great, so we have the play button is visible and the row is visible, but we also want to make the correct image invisible, so we'll set it to false. We want to set the next button is visible to false, and the answer label visible to false. All right, let's go and see what that looks like. If I get it wrong, great. I get it right. Great. I hit next. Awesome. Okay, one last thing that I want to do is whenever we click the next button, this text goes away so that the text input is blank again. And we can do that very simply by setting the text inputs. Oh, okay. Didn't mean to do that. Let's go back over here. Set the text inputs, text to blank, to nothing. Great. And that's the whole app. One last thing that I had added on mine that you don't have to do, but I did because I have a sound, is if there was an error with the sound playing, I want to do something. So you can do that by going to the sound here and on error. I'll set the answer label. I wanted to display what the error was in the answer label. So I'm going to set the answer labels text to say an error occurred. And then error with a colon. I can't spell occurred. And then the name of the error. Gotta also make sure that that label gets visible when that happens. So that's just some error handling that might happen if the sound can't play for some reason. This should never happen, but you never know. So that's it. That's the whole app. Again, like I said, you don't have to use sounds. You are more than welcome to use images or text. You just set it up the exact same way here, except for you would, instead of setting sound source whenever this changes, you would be changing the image picture or the text or the labels text or whatever it might be. But other than that, everyone should code should look pretty much the same. And that's the whole thing. Go ahead and, as always, go to the project details page and submit this to the quiz app assignment on Canvas. And I'm looking forward to seeing all your creative quizzes. All right. Thanks, guys.